My 77 times great-grandfather. The silence and ignorance of bureaucrats has kept history from us, yet the history and facts still exist. The information kept silent for centuries affected the charade of voting one man to be an idol, and strange explanations about who and what he was. Too many people think God took a holiday to live on our insignificant planet, one of billions in billions of solar systems with planets capable of supporting human life. God is everything tangible and real, not illogical or absurd. A few secrets of Christianity. This is Epiphanies, an enlightening, sometimes alarming, yet readable radio program aimed at general audiences of believers, presented by CJAZ Radio 99.7 FM. I'm your host, Alan Harmony. Secrets seem interesting, even fun at times as a child. However, in all too many cases, while they conceal important information by being kept from those it affects most, they have a tendency of becoming harmful or serious, or are timely and difficult to reveal. This series has many secrets about a relative of mine, someone who in the past left useful lessons to be replicated, lessons that support life, health, and inspiration. Unfortunately, those who were to have shepherded those most affected by these facts distorted and disposed of the knowledge, lied, and otherwise failed to tell you the facts or truth, and buried the most valued lessons with ignorance and ineffectual inability. Some shepherds allowed this teaching to be corrupted in a deeply troubling political act known as the Council of Nicaea, where they voted him to be another god of Rome and destroyed his lessons. The facts may seem crazy to those who have been told and accepted half-truths and lies for a long time. Yet there's a ring of truth apparent that, were it a light, it would certainly beam like a laser through the darkness created by ignorance, lies, and denial. My objective here is not to argue, it is to teach and inform, and give you information you do not have and may not find on your own, or overlook if your ability to see the bigger picture is impaired by limitations you have had imposed on you by clergy. If you came with your mind set and you aren't open to change, then we both have a problem. However, yours is a far bigger problem. God wants change and progress, or we wouldn't be given content in our dreams to improve, invent, devise, or change. Take that knowledge into everything you do, and where cooperation is required in interaction with others. Do not live in the past or only in the present, while the future is in our dreams. We need knowledge of the future for our success and safety, plus. It has taken me a lifetime to find all the bits and pieces of facts and corroborate them. Without the facts, many people would deny those the Creator has supplied to provide the truth and the way, those whose job it is to provide clarity and understanding. If you think I would waste 70 years of my existence to fabricate a spurious message, lacking integrity or without support for life and belief, it would have consequences for you and me. It would also leave the stage open to false messiahs, pretenders, and ravening religionaries offering fraudulent messages or news that isn't new. While I'm more than a little reluctant to reveal some things about me, to do my job, I cannot avoid revealing some key facts and a point of reference relating to my position. Satan would be proud of the lack of support for life that led nowhere after the idolatry of voting a Messiah to be a god of Rome. So pay attention. Do not dismiss what I have to say. Your life is on the line, and only facts and change will help you get over the hurdles ahead. Yet I cannot do it without disclosing some uncomfortable facts that less than half the people will be happy to know, against the bureaucracy of certain leaders and the wholesale emasculation and corruption of his teachings. Truthful prophets are seldom popular, seeing we humans do not like hearing about things that negatively impact us, even if our life hinges on knowing in advance. Start by asking yourself, why would a story be told that had a godly man vanish from a mountaintop into heaven after needing to conceal who he was in his own community? Think, he'd just weeks earlier been crucified and revived. He had enemies as well as supporters. He had to vanish to remain safe, so his enemies would not follow or have him slain by hitmen or crucified again, seeing they thought they had disposed of him permanently. He was a marked man. His crucifixion meant he could never again rise to his previous popularity in Israel. Even before fleeing, he had to conceal himself. His primary enemies were leaders of Judaism. They had more power than most people realize, enough to coerce the Roman Pontius Pilate, who ran occupied Israel, to approve his crucifixion, even though he and Pilate's wife saw he was innocent, guilty of no crime. He was a victim of trumped-up accusations against him, the worst form of gossip or false witness, supported by outright lies and false statements in a conspiracy initiated by a secular political body controlled by rabbis lacking humanity and integrity. Jesus was a Roman by birth, as his mother's rapist was one. Support in the form of a letter of being a Roman did not arrive in time for it to be used to avert the injustice against him. Even if the letter had arrived, it was less than certain to have stopped the crucifixion, because Jesus was considered a no-account bastard by rabbis. Intolerant rabbis hated bastards spawned by Romans who occupied Israel by force and for their pleasure carnally exploited Jewish girls. John the Baptist and Zechariah, conceived in the same way, met similarly brutal fates. A statement by a more tolerant rabbi that the conception by a father unacceptable to the Jewish community would be designated to be conceived by God. That way the child could be accepted as being Jewish, as a conversion by nurture and education. According to rabbis, even genetic Jews are not Jewish if they do not practice Judaism. Such a statement undoubtedly saved some children from intolerance within Jewish society, who despised all bastards. Yet the matter was never a child's misdoing. Had abortion been an option, who would have known the teachings of my 77 times great-grandfather? He was born to a caring couple who knew nurture was more important than nature, raised and schooled widely to learn what he taught, and like me learned to be guided by his dreams and visions. Religion's leaders have largely destroyed his teachings, and in life nearly him too. If you're someone who believes in miracles, would you like to explain a few of them? Or would you prefer I did? After all, some of them are not remotely miraculous. They were simply advanced technology of the time, such as turning water into wine. That same ability exists in making wine via kits with grape juice concentrate to which water is added. That it existed 2,000 years ago might be a minor miracle. The same holds true for walking on water. Sheesh, you guys, have you never seen someone surfing, or did you think that it was a modern invention too? Did you miss the key element in that? He went into the water during a storm, when the surf was up. So what if they forgot to mention the plank or surfboard? It was not as though all the details were explained relating to what he did or how he did it. Sure, he stilled the waters by riding a surfboard. To parallel that, explain in an equally brief manner to someone from a remote village with no TV how someone flew in a rocket, landed on the moon, and came back, without the terminology to explain how. And even rocket is not a term you can use. Remote villages would not know the word or its meaning. As for healing people of many ailments he tackled and cured, why are you not doing the same? Or do you think you should leave that ability to the Satans who are conducting services to praise their idol without conducting any of the practicums, labs, or field trips? Any value is buried by tons of opinion and mountains of half-truths. The path he left his followers led to knowledge, excellence, health, appreciation of quality, improvements, freedoms to choose and to make changes, not mundane ignorance, illness, or boringness. Praising an idol for support for a bureaucracy which lacked any knowledge about what he actually taught was never a consideration. If you think the people God identified as Satans in prophecies know what they are doing and have what it takes to be teaching, then there is little hope of you learning what my 77 times great-grandfather taught. He did not teach in places of worship, nor call clergy to be disciples. None. He taught where people could learn, without dogma. You might want to re-examine the number of times the use of dreams factored into his life before he was born and following it, enabling him and his family to avoid misfortune and dangers. Oh yeah, for the doubters, his name wasn't Jesus, it was Yeshua, or in English, Joshua, and his family name was Asaph. The marriage at Cana was his. His father-in-law, Joseph of Arimathea, a trader whose ships went far and wide, even to the British Isles for tin, was an important man and a member of the Sanhedrin which Joseph Caiaphas led to push a decision to rid Israel of the upstart Messiah. Rabbis would not accept anyone upsetting their profitable and pious fraud. Joseph also provided the tomb for Jesus to lie in to recover from his nearly fatal injuries, or, being pragmatic, to die in if he didn't recover. I say nearly fatal because to many he had already succumbed to his injuries by being comatose and could have died had a Roman soldier not punctured Jesus' lymph-filled lung with a spear and drained it. lymph-filled due to the violent abuses he had already endured before being crucified. Jesus foresaw what he would face if he didn't flee Israel. Yet due to his connections and truthful helpfulness of his message, he thought he could weather the storm and survive it. He may also have felt somewhat anchored by his roots in the community by being married, and his father-in-law being an influential man as well as being in the Sanhedrin. That would have hampered him making a wiser choice to flee. Can you see naked facts are more plausible than a polished half-truth? He had failed to consider the real threats rabbis posed. His assumptions were half true. He did survive it, barely, but in the end he had to flee the country. He had made a mistake by staying, and so many followers see his crucifixion as a highlight of his life. It wasn't, even though it was unusual to the point of appearing miraculous to the credulous, but not so unusual by it never happening again. It was just not often. Jesus lost his wife, Mary Magdalene, in the turmoil too, when her family intervened and called her home after Joseph saw he was going to be convicted unjustly by murderous, opinionated gossip the rabbis in the Sanhedrin were voicing, and the depth of unjust hatred being leveled at his son-in-law. That level of hatred still exists in some rabbis today, Satans who would be a threat to any messiahs, no matter when or where they appeared, especially if it was in Israel. Rabbis would resist any message a Messiah might offer if his teachings didn't support the idolatry and superstition they believe in, then or now. Most want no change. Joseph knew the implications to their marriage and future. That Mary was pregnant barely mattered compared to ensuring her safety. She could not remain safe, and in Israel as a wife of a crucified man, even any children they had would have been at risk. That son would be my 76th times great-grandfather. The boy child Joseph of Arimathea later took to Glastonbury to be educated, hidden, to protect him from enemies. Jesus never got to see him or hold him. Some records indicate the child's given name was Judah, yet to conceal who he was, to protect him from the threat of religionaries and his identity from the likes of Herod, other political leaders, and the Sanhedrin, his identity was conveyed as being an item held gently or with care, namely the Holy Grail, and variations on that. Several of Jesus' other family members in Israel were victims of the Sanhedrin. They were so against a Messiah or any relatives of a claimant upsetting their ongoing fraud. Several parties were interested in keeping track. However, over time and uncertain as to what and why they were paying attention to a child who wasn't wealthy or notable, the interest dwindled and petered out. What did occur was a convoluted tale of intrigue and secrets, some facts and even more half-truths and misunderstandings, boiling down to a very long-lasting, real-life version of Chinese whispers, well embroidered. Joseph knew there would be serious social and societal fallout by Jesus being condemned by the highly political body of a religion able to influence judicial process, to murder innocent people if religious interests were impugned or if any took offense. Unjust ends occurred to two of Jesus' siblings, if the existing records are for the same people. One by stoning and one by crucifixion, terminations called for by the Lesser Sanhedrin, the political body controlling Judaism in Jerusalem. The Sanhedrin inflamed or caused human rights crimes, discrimination, and injustices in Israel, sometimes based on scriptural content, yet never on the living word of the Creator. Recently, much effort has gone into finding his tomb or ossuary in Israel. The fact he left Israel from a mountaintop seems to be ignored by those who take the words as literal rather than the political truth to protect a man who rightfully feared for his life after he began recovering from being crucified. He wasn't dead. They ignored human nature effects on society and threats he faced by being condemned in a nation where women were blamed for being victims of rape and sometimes stoned for being complicit in their own rape, and that was just the small stuff the Sanhedrin did. Claiming to be a Messiah was a crime to the Sanhedrin. They did not want a Messiah to appear in Israel. Some rabbis expect one to appear and might accept one if his appearance will be as literally fulfilled as they want it to be. Except many prophecies for the last Messiah won't be fulfilled again. So many Jews didn't pay attention to the living word when the last one lived there, and still don't. If you think God has held his breath waiting for rabbis to wake up to the vast amounts of the living word when it is as near as your dreams and visions, then you are sadly mistaken. Rabbis don't even use the word of God written by Enoch or the New Testament. Lots of luck. Your self-blinding ignorance is about to bite you. Any claims of him being a child of God put him into perilous territory with rabbis, as it meant his birth circumstances were against accepted norms of morality rabbis defined. Do you seriously think a human being, and messiahs are definitely human, could fly or vanish from a mountaintop or anywhere else, except to create an illusion, a subterfuge, so his supporters could deceive his credulous and superstitious enemies? Are you ready to know the truth about anything else? Or are you happy to be conned by others, oblivious to the truth and facts, or in denial? Some of those afflicted with religion may be believers. However, most of them are kept in denial by the half-truths, misinformation, and lies religion has filled their ears with. This is one of several points where stories you've been told by clergy vary substantially from reality by turning a man into a god of Rome. They prevaricate or tell lies because so many don't know what the truth is and haven't for a long time, nor care and cannot find it even though they have the keys to what every prophet or legitimate man of God has applied to get answers to the prophets found or needed. The misinformation created, embroidered, and cloistered in religion has been going on for a long time, yet so much of it is grossly untrue, built on desires of clergy, not facts. Without ongoing use of dreams and visions, clergy are not of God, they are of idols, etc.
Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money. Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money.
Within weeks he fled the land of his birth with some of his family and a few friends and headed north, then east. It was the safest direction to go, along the trade routes, and he had some good contacts at more than one point in that direction. People pleased or impressed with his talents and skills and charismatic personality. His older stepsister Mary and stepbrother Thomas were two of a dozen emigres who went with him. Where did they go? According to the Gospel of Thomas and several other sources, they went to Taxila, located in northern Pakistan now, and accepted a contract to rebuild many buildings after the region had suffered a major earthquake, plus build some new ones. It was a Buddhist university city on 3 trade routes. The contract took about 20 years to complete. Thomas worked with him for the duration, then he went south and taught in southern India and in Sri Lanka. He was murdered in Chennai. Later his bones were removed and moved twice more, eventually, to Orotona, Italy. The king of Taxila, Gudnafar, or Gandhafaris, was someone well known to him from prior trips to the area before he became king. His successor, King Kanishka, honored Jesus with a coin minted, depicting him as a Buddha. One of the points to note on the coin is that Buddha had never before or after been depicted as having a beard. For those who might visit Taxila to see the ruins of what he built or rebuilt, it is already Pakistan's biggest tourist attraction. At the time of the crucifixion, Jerusalem had a population of about 50,000 plus, Israel about 500,000. Taxila then may have been nearly the same size as Jerusalem. The point of providing you this information is not as much to correct the errors and omissions of the past and bring you up to speed in terms of the history, as it is to show how many of the same problems creating it still exist, ones found in people whose childhood training lacked compassion for others or in related areas. Infants and toddlers are known to have strong feelings against those whose choices, actions, or appearances are different. Few parents see the concern, let alone act to remedy it, or worse, support discriminatory behavior with words or body language. It appears a child's isolation from variety, change, and choices contributes to racism, bigotry, and other forms of intolerance, bullying, and discrimination being repeated. Literacy and education enables change. The Creator is liberal by supplying us with endless ways to advance change and improve. Conservatism, held by religion, supports ignorance and little or no change, and tries to paint being liberal as bad or wrong. The most important part, conservatism, is to conserve, or to balance inspired change by being careful, not obstructive. Religion congregates conservatism. The Creator wants no religion or any hypocrisy, denying or hampering a use of dreams and visions. What else are infants exposed to? Indifference, justification of abuses to others, including racism, threats, bullying, assault, torture, ridicule, isolation, rape, and or other kinds of attacks on them, plus lies, denials, and rationalization to cover up complicity. I've been put in what to me is an awkward situation, as I'm not discriminatory and usually tolerant or conciliatory. People differ. No one is perfect. We make mistakes. Yet some shun equality, acceptance, or fairness in how rights are applied, until it comes to their rights and ability to choose lies and ignorance over truth, bullying over caring, Yet one group has been clearly identified to be discriminated against, non-believers and atheists, due to the harm they create with their ignorance. That is more than a little troublesome to me, so we'll have to see how it plays out. Some of them are intent on supporting their ignorance as if it were an organized religion. While I have many answers you have never heard before, I don't have answers for everything, and I'm uncertain whether they will be given directly to me. After all, the world is a big place, and my ability is to show how to get the answers and understand them, not provide all of them. You would learn nothing if I did it all for you. Some answers provided may upset the faithful. Sorry, it cannot be helped. I cannot help you onto the right path without showing the path you are on has been seriously corrupted into idolatry and ignorance, and that one key person involved in creating that path is a distant relative of mine. I've known about this for a long time and kept quiet about it, seeing I had a fair idea about the effects it would create if knowledge of my ancestry were made public. I knew disbelief and denials would exist in the very people one would think would be most interested or supportive. I know, I tested what I knew on people occasionally. Again, I should mention that I am not the only descendant, just the only one who took responsibility for reconstructing the lessons, a repairman of sorts. But so many have no idea of what my distant grandfather really taught that what I've reconstructed may seem to be new. I had to continue in spite of my concerns and reluctance, and to focus on my mandate to call the believing flocks out of the barns they have been sheltered in. If you want to see those prophecies, read John 10:1-6. Those prophecies have been annotated in the last book in the series. However, you need to grasp how the analogies work, and that is covered in the first book and supported throughout the series. A big part of what I've written includes annotations of prophecies, and they do not lend themselves to be presented as radio content. The interlinear method of providing interpretation is not well suited to conversational or auditory explanations without creating confusion. Maybe later. To get more of the story and the lessons on how to use dreams, read the book series, The Prince of Peace. If you're a fast reader and don't get bogged down, you can skim over the series in a week of long days. To get all the realizations and implications built into what the Creator provided, it will take longer. And as useful as speed reading is, the ability to reason for most people is not well entrenched in that speed. Prophecy is not a subject for casual or cursory investigation, as it opens the door for many other considerations and realizations at the same time you may have noticed. Speed reduces comprehension and the opportunity to apply reasoning. Reading prophecies or dreams is only a start. Writing your own dreams is necessary to get practice grasping their meaning, depth, and the necessity of putting practical logic to their concepts and analogies, all to deal with concerns preemptively. You must find your eyes for analogies, anagrams, and metaphors, and they are linked to the need for reasoning. In the process, your new eyes will make an intellectual leap to inspiration. For most, it will not be a one-step process, but a series of hops until you gain proficiency with larger and larger leaps, and not necessarily in your areas of expertise, yet using your skills and knowledge. You will also need the initial Practically Dreaming course to get parts that cannot be so easily conveyed in text. Besides, you need to be able to test the facts for yourself, and need the means to do that. That is why I show how, not do it for you. So now you can see how eternal life is part of what is being offered to believers and who is bringing it to you. After all, it is only introduction to the person behind this material that is going to upset it as well as enlighten. Surprised? Trust me, I didn't know how this would all fit together either when I started. Not completely even now, so I'm somewhat overwhelmed too. You can see, though, that there are at least as many more questions created by what I am providing than can be answered in one program, or even the book series. So some of the questions you may have will be answered in Epiphanies magazine. The Illuminati religion left Egypt with Exodus. Hebrews and the religion they created was afflicted by Egyptian religions and its many forms of idolatry and superstition. One only needs to recognize that Aaron, Moses' brother, was not of the same belief. He was one of the Illuminati. The Hebrews were not an advanced civilization trapped in a backward nation in their perceived slavery to Egyptians. The Hebrews had been represented on the line of pharaohs by Uya and by influential members such as Joseph. Those connections may be in part explain how Illuminati were not part of the belief that became Judaism. The Hebrews clearly were not of one mind then or now as far as their beliefs were concerned. Hebrews were also not as advanced by comparison to the Sea Peoples who came in from the north in far greater numbers after the disaster on Thera. It was the same event, creating a tsunami which parted the sea for Moses, knocked down the walls of Jericho and many other widely separated towns and cities, and generally devastated a huge area and created a globally felt disaster the Chinese still celebrate as their New Year festival, even though the Jewish and Chinese calendars no longer share the same date of the year after 3,000 plus years. The Sea Peoples were more advanced in pottery, architecture, use of iron, and were occupying coastal areas of what became Israel. The way the Bible chronicles problems with the Philistines is who found they were forced to be contended with. The Hebrews did have one big thing going for them. They simplified hieroglyphics into a scripted alphabet and used it to write their tribal history and dreams. Unfortunately, it seems that the keepers of the content turned the content on pages it was written on into idols, and forgot or ignored the keys to it were in the living word, and that they were not the only ones getting such content. Now the Jews are more successful, but still a superstitious people, kept that way by rabbis dictating what they should believe, practice, and celebrate, how they should behave and run their nation, all while keeping the rabbis themselves funded so they can keep the dictatorship that oppresses everyone in their influence. Their democracy is a cruel and unjust joke, while their chief rabbinate keeps control without majority approval. You might almost think having a covert dictatorship was good for a nation, except for the oppression of Arab Muslims, rank discrimination against Messianic Jews, thefts of lands from Palestinians, and bulldozing 27,000 plus of their homes, their ghettoization, and other crimes against humanity. And the current aim, they don't trumpet loudly, is to rid Israel of all non-Jewish influences. How many Jews elsewhere in the world recognized that attitude and chose not to return to the land in which their forefathers spilled copious amounts of blood, committed countless injustices, and arrogantly thought they were beyond reproach and would be able to continue their behavior until Romans exiled most of them in 2 lots. It wasn't the Promised Land. Their death toll exceeds 23,000, defending the claim that it is. Rabbis, like all clergy of other faith denominations, don't heed the living word. Rabbis are anachronistic, stuck on tiny amounts of content written 2,400 years ago, reaching back to Moses' time. I've already shown vast amounts of prophetic content are still being produced by the same source, with no connection to any religion, only to the beliefs of almost everyone, a collective consciousness. There's so little use of the living word within religions, it could be unequally likened to getting rain in the world's driest desert, with the desert getting more often. How can clergy of any religion cope with the concerns the Creator showed via prophets, plus the large list of current and upcoming catastrophic events with such a minuscule amount of content? They cannot. Claims to the contrary are lies. Religion and its minions do not use the living word, so religion can only offer false hope and no ability to use or apply it, along with a slight use of the Word of God. Frankly, it's time believers realized how little religion has given you for your time and money and turn your efforts to the covenant of belief the living word does support. So many of you claim to believe in it already, but you need to do it before the really big concerns bite us. The benefits are immense once you start. I've already supplied a list of major events and concerns we must act on. To list all of them would only overwhelm you, as few people are ready to corroborate, let alone act preemptively on them. All of the ones I list pose risk to lives, so proactive responses are needed. However, I cannot do it for you without your participation. We have enough time to prepare for the big disasters, tribulations, and related events if we hasten. However, I assume by now you know I am telling you the truth. Life is about the trials and tribulations we experience, plus the love and joys. It includes the successes and failures, what we should have done and what we could have done. Life includes what we do for others and happens despite other plans. If you only knew the whole of it, the Creator is right in there pitching us with hints and suggestions as to what to expect or do, not provided literally, only as analogies and metaphors we can use once we have reasoned the content.
Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money. Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money.
The downside is that inaction, delay, or disbelief will ensure that more than half the world's population perishes in the next 2 decades. Is that life? Sure. Death is an unwanted function of life. Inevitable. Even if we live eternally and may manage to avoid dying in disasters and other life-snuffing events, that don't need to become deadly. There are always hints how to deal with the concerns in advance. Do you know how? Have you even taken the first steps by recalling and writing your dreams? Like rabbis and other clergy who have no familiarity with the living word, I could offer platitudes and vague generalities, or I could simply apply what I know will occur for my own benefit and leave you to figure the rest out when and if you can. It's up to you. It's in your dreams. It's your life, and I know you are not prepared to live it guided by religion. Well, that source is there if you are even paying attention. I and the Creator know how few people are doing that. We would like to help. However, you need to learn. You need the training. You must start with the books, and of those, the most important one for you is Practically Dreaming by Alan Harmony. We could endlessly chew over what happened to teachings 2,000 years ago. However, it would be far less value than teaching you how to do and use what Jesus taught before his lessons were cut short by those who controlled religion. Considering the concerns we know about, the time is short to have the same abilities he taught then, before they must be applied to save the living from untimely death. There is no better way, and many ways, to split hairs on shades of meaning on past realizations and prophecies not yet discussed. It is believers who need help now, so they can succeed as described. For the many who will be traveling, moving, relocating, displaced, not well positioned for saving foods or with special food needs, look for or provide custom cookery where people with more food can get a good meal by sharing what they may have in excess with others, whether raised themselves, traded, harvested, or donated, as well as from any manner of food supplier or producer. Include use of food reaching or past its best before date. Avoid wasting food and grow lots to eat. There's a 5-year-long famine coming. Tuck the cookery beside bigger food services as a grill or food bar which supplies little more than methods of basic cooking, a printed list of what they regularly supply, and an erasable board of what is also available which might otherwise get wasted or is in short supply, a service between a soup kitchen and a food bank. In effect, it will provide an opportunity to share, a stone soup approach. Not all big eateries can adjust easily to what they see as a niche market. However, most can provide cheap gut stuffers on their menu or support a custom cooker. This suggestion is brought to you as a result of a few dreams, knowing that there will be many whose need for food will increase or change suddenly due to the stresses of the time and events. In most places, a variety of safety nets will be needed to handle the increases of homelessness. Plan ahead. The need will increase rapidly. If I tell you, let God be with you, it means recalling and using your dreams.
Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money. Buy or sell it, saving lives and your money.